Welcome to Parenting Team Podcasts. Today, I'm feeling really chuffed because I'm answering a question that was sent to me from a parent, and it's all around teens and their food choices. So, the question I was sent was I've noticed my daughter started to reduce what she's eating since she's met some new people and has got into a relationship. I've always advocated healthy eating, moderation, exercise, and body positivity. So, this is a stark reminder for me that my influence is no longer the most influential one. My son literally makes unhealthy food choices always, despite my efforts. Beige processed food always wins for him. A cracking question from a parent who's listened to my podcast before. Thank you so much for sending this in. This is an experience that I certainly can relate to, and I'm sure many others of you will too. So, this subject touches on something that nearly every parent of a teen I feel experiences. That moment when you start to realise that your influence is being replaced by their peers, things from social media, or simply just your teen's want for independence. And when it comes to food, this shift can feel really scary. Because food's about health, mood, confidence, and even survival. So when we see eating patterns change, alarm bells naturally go off. But here's the thing, your role as a parent isn't to control what your teen eats. It's actually to stay connected enough that they'll be able to tell you when and if they feel unsure, unsafe, or out of control with food, or how they feel they look. You don't need to convince them that your way is best. As we know, teens always learn through experience, and your job is to try and make sure those experiences happen in a safe space where they feel supported and heard. So, before we crack on with what to do, I want to help you see the complexity of what seems like a pretty straightforward issue with food choices. So, to help you understand what might be going on, when we see our teens changing how they eat, whether it's eating less, skipping meals, or living off of beige processed foods, it really can stir up a lot of worry. But before we jump into fixing or convincing, it can be really helpful to pause and just ask, why might this even be happening? Because in my experience, food choices are really so rarely just about food alone. So when you can ask why, instead of reacting to the what, you're going to get closer to understanding what's really going on. I know I say it a lot in these podcasts, but again, empathy with your teenager is so key because it makes sure that you just never assume you understand what's going on. It's really important to focus on the person, as such, your teenager, not the problem, what or how much they're eating. You need to focus on your teen, not on the food. As a bit of an explanation, here's two very likely reasons that could create this kind of behaviour with food. And just to put some kind of caveat on it, both of these will need to be treated differently. And this is why your understanding is something that's so key. So let's start with the daughter. Sometimes reducing what she eats can actually be about control. Teens' lives can feel so unpredictable. Friendships are changing, school pressures, well, that's on the rise no matter who you are. Relationships can get very intense, and suddenly, food becomes one of the few things that she can manage. And it's a really easy thing for her to take control of. So, by eating less, it can help her feel like, here's something that I get to decide. Sometimes I think all parents will jump here. Seeing your teenager eat less can potentially feel about belonging. Maybe with her new friends or her boyfriend, potentially they eat differently. Or, as I imagine most of us suspect, maybe they talk a lot about health and body image. But understanding that this isn't her trying to just reject your values, that food and balance is important. What she's trying to do is adapt, like we all do when we want to fit in with people. No matter who we are, that connection can feel really important. And I've mentioned it before, teens, friendships, relationships are a massive top priority. So if this becomes about belonging, what you're going to need to focus on is less about the food and more on their self-esteem. You could find out that actually both of these reasons have a part to play in what's going on with your daughter. Without knowing and without asking, the chances are that you'll make assumptions that you understand where this is coming from. And that means you can really miss the mark. And then you really need to prepare yourself to get ready to hear, you just don't understand. So you need to ask your teenager about it and then act accordingly. If it's control, looking at things like, where can you give more control so that food isn't the only choice she's looking at? If it's about belonging, then
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
she's looking at. If it's about belonging, then as I mentioned, self-esteem is going to be a key focus for you. Notice how this is focusing on the person, not on how much food they're putting in their mouths. So let's move on to your son, his beige processed choices. It might seem like these are the complete opposite to what's going on with your daughter. And I couldn't blame you for linking it to laziness or just not being bothered. But underneath, it can come from a very similar place to what's going on with your daughter. Sometimes it's comfort through predictability. Processed foods are easy, consistent, familiar. There's no surprises in it. And if you can imagine a teen juggling stress, any kind of overload or overwhelm, that kind of familiar, no surprise situation can be really nice. Maybe this is just a case of him wanting to know that he's going to get something that he knows he likes, whilst everything else is pushing him right now. That is something that will just be familiar and easy. Or maybe it could be a quiet act of independence. Maybe it's not even about the taste of the beige food. Maybe it's just saying, do you know what? I want to choose what goes into my body right now. It's not a rebellion against you personally, per se. It's a normal way for teenagers to push for independence and autonomy, to show that it's their choice now and they have some control. Again, how can you help if this is where they're at? Some kind of control, any kind of places where you can let them have the choice, let them take control of what happens for them. I always say it's worth asking yourself as well, with any kind of issue with your teenager, is this a parent fear? Or is this a fear that they hold for themselves as well? Because again, these will bring very different approaches in what needs to be focused on. So before you react, it helps to get curious. These choices, even the ones that worry us, are often how teens express their need for control, comfort, or belonging. And that brings us to the real heart of all of this. As parents, your job isn't to control the choice anymore. It's to protect your connection. Don't focus on the problem. Focus on the person. Because when your relationship is strong with your teenager, your influence doesn't just disappear, it changes shape. And it actually means that you have more input into your teen's life than if you don't have that relationship. So there are 3 key facts I want you to know when it comes to how to cope with a teenager that's changing their eating choices. First and foremost, relationship beats control, and it will bring you safety. When your teen feels you're more interested in understanding them than correcting them, they're more likely to come to you if something doesn't feel right. If you don't have that connection, I can't express enough. They'll be feeling very alone with these big feelings of what's going on. And without a doubt, that is when risky behaviour is most likely to deepen. Number 2, Influence happens through whatever is on offer. Now, you can't actually decide what your teen eats, but you can shape what's available. And by this, I don't just mean keeping healthy things around the house for them to grab, although this can help, but a lot of teenagers will choose to ignore what they see and won't touch it with a barge pole. What I mean is actually maybe starting to influence where they can become involved in food. Maybe asking them what they want for their dinners, cooking it together from scratch, or maybe involving them in the choices of the food shop. And actually, you modeling balance rather than restriction. And also show them you're not perfect with this either. It's an opportunity to influence quietly, not forcefully, and show that you care about what's going on underneath and not just the fact that they're looking to influence what goes in their mouth. And the third thing, the third thing I want you to recognize is that empathy over education will always be key. Education when they're little was something that was so very important. So I completely recognize why we still go there. But as your teenager grows, empathy is what will get you further than trying to educate a teenager. Because let's be honest, they already know that being healthy with food is important for mood and energy and their survival. But what they don't know yet is how that feels in their own body. Or maybe they do, but it's just not their priority right now. And sure, you can shoot it up their priority scale by bleating on about it at home, but you'll find that their eating habits probably won't change a lot, but your relationship definitely will. Empathy is the way forward, acknowledging how hard it is to balance choices, pressures, image, and how we can all find comfort, control, and acceptance in the predictable things of life. And that it can be okay, but we need to think about it. And of course, you can share your thoughts and concerns with your teen. I don't by any means feel that you should just let your teen make every single choice regardless to how safe they are, but don't make demands or criticise. And if you think this is a safety issue, I can't emphasise enough how important it is to get extra help and support. But if you're unsure if this is something related to something a little bit different for your teen, and you have already checked that this isn't more of a concern for you than it is for them, honestly, empathy holds the mirror to help them to notice these links for themselves. If you insist on telling them, it is equivalent to dragging them to a mirror and pointing out everything that you see is wrong with them. Don't expect them to embrace this, because they won't. If you show them empathy, they will feel that you want to understand. And that takes us back to the place that when they feel things are wrong, they are far more likely to come and tell you. And that, at the end of the day, is really key for this. Because the number one concern is, what if our teenagers make decisions that affect their health or their future? So 3 things that I think that you can try in terms of supporting a teenager who's changing their choices around food. Stay curious, not critical. So instead of things like, I don't think you're eating enough at the moment, or that isn't really a very good dinner, try things like, I've noticed you've been eating a bit less lately, and I'm just wondering how you're doing. That's the 3rd time you've had pizza this week. Is everything all right? How are things going in your world? Curiosity will always invite conversation. Control will just always shut it down. The second thing to try, create very low pressure food moments in your house. Because trust me, they're probably already aware of how you feel about this. And the chances are they probably...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
how you feel about this. And the chances are they probably already dread any situations with food within the house because they're not happy with where it is either. Unless it's a you problem, and then maybe they're okay with it, but they dread it because they know you're going to bring it up. So making it low pressure when food is involved. Eating together when you can will always help. I absolutely advocate this, but let's be realistic, it isn't always doable. If you do get to eat together, make sure it's about building some sort of connection with your teenager. And it isn't about education, and especially not education around food. Take it as an opportunity to get to know and understand them, not a place to educate or correct. Let food just be the backdrop for your relationship and not the topic that is constantly used for you to engage with your teenager. And the final thing to do is to keep your door open and keep calm unless you see a real risk. Saying things to your teen like, if you ever start to feel like food or how you look is taking up a lot of space in your head, I'm always here. I'm always here to talk to with no judgment. Things like this simple statement will let your teen know that they're not alone, even if things get hard. Helping them to understand that you're there to support them with whatever is going on is what they need to know. And then you can have the trust that they can come to you if you have the relationship. See how the relationship always ends up being key? Without it, you're in a place where you're going to choose to educate or correct because you have nowhere else to go. So building that relationship is always going to be key. But trust me, I know this is hard. Watching your teenager make choices that feel risky or uncomfortable, it just goes straight to our hearts. Every instinct screams, I need to step in, I need to change this, I need to protect them. And I totally get that urge comes from love, not from control. But with teenagers, as this parent said in their question, your influence and choice points are now very limited. So make sure that this is that important that you're willing to sacrifice another priority. Because now you have limited areas that you can push in. So make sure you're picking wisely. As I've said, if this is a safety concern, get help. Don't sit on this. Real courage in parenting teens often means resisting that pull to fix, choose, or dictate and educate. It involves choosing connection over correction, curiosity over panic. And it's hard, I get it. But when you do make these choices, honestly, it's awesome. When you hold steady and stay open and have a trust that your relationship is something they're going to return to, you give your teenager something far more powerful than perfect choices. You give them the confidence to find their way back to balance. And that, more than any rule or reminder, is what keeps your teenager safe long term. Parenting teens isn't about getting them to make the right choice, or should I even say your choice. It's about helping them recover when they don't make that choice. Food is just one arena where they practice independence, and the real lesson is how you stay alongside them as they figure all of this out for themselves. So stand back. Check if this is a you or a them problem. Work out what is really going on for them through curiosity and holding focus here on the person, not the problem. And allow your teenagers independence as much as you possibly can. Sharing your thoughts with them is fine, but just understanding and helping them find their way back is definitely the best choice. And always assure them that you are there if they want to make a change or if they need a hand with any of this. If you've got any concerns on nutrition for your teen through this, I also have a podcast with a lady called Uta Bollinger that may be a good place for you to go. It's called How Food Can Help Your Teenager's Mood, Growth and Development. In this episode, she shares the foods that bring most benefit and are needed most as they grow and develop. So what you may choose to put on offer could well be influenced by what you hear here. If you're interested in any of the aspects of how to raise a teenager, My book, Don't Panic, It's Just a Teenager, may also help you. It contains much of what I've focused on and shares the key aspects to building and maintaining that important relationship. And it's got a whole chapter on empathy. Like I said, I told you it's important. It's available on Amazon, or drop me a message and I can quite happily send you a link to it. If you've got any questions you would like to ask that you would like put into a podcast like this awesome parent did, please just make contact. If you've got this far and you're still listening, I want to say thanks. I hope it's been helpful. And if you've got any feedback or questions, or as I've said, want a link to my book, please just put a comment on here on podcast or whatever you're listening on, or email me at teentherapist.online@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a cracking day.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.